All right, now let's talk about the autonomic nervous system, and we're going to start to venture into territory that I'm sure you probably haven't heard before. So the previous stuff we talked about, I'm sure you got an intro to psychology, but now we're moving into physiological psychology a little. I'm going to introduce some terms, and our first neurotransmitters, actually. So the sympathetic nervous system, as you see here, is classically called the fight or flight system. It's the one that gets us out of a crisis if we're in danger. It kicks into gear. So what it does is if you are about to be mugged or you're about to get in a car accident, it makes your eyes see clearer, pumps blood to your muscles, it makes you use more oxygen efficiently, and it also shuts down other parts of your body that you don't need right now. It shuts down digestion, shuts down ovulation, all these other functions that you don't need right now because you may be dead in the next few minutes. So the sympathetic nervous system is quite simply just trying to keep you alive and get you through this crisis. Now, let's talk about the anatomical structure. So here's our brain and our spinal cord. And here's our organs, the organs in play. Okay, so it turns out it's a two-step process to go from the spinal cord to what are called ganglia, or clusters of cells that reside very close to the spinal cord but outside the spinal cord. So this schematic is a little dot and a line and a little triangle there going, right? And it just means a cell or multiple of cells are sending a bunch of axons to these cells. And then these cells are going to get stimulated or inhibited, and they're going to send their information to the particular organs. So it's a two-step process going from spinal cord to ganglia, and then from ganglia to target organ. Now, when we talk about a cluster of cells outside the central nervous system, we call them a ganglia. If we talk about a cluster of cells in the nervous system, we call them a nucleus of cells. Okay? So since we're talking about ganglia here, these two pathways are called preganglionic, the blue ones, before the ganglia, and postganglionic neurons, after the ganglia. So we have two different types, preganglionic and postganglionic. Pre are from the central nervous system to the ganglia, and post are from the ganglia to the effector organ, the target organ. And some information that always seems to find its way to the quizzes. It's important to know in the sympathetic nervous system, the preganglionic fibers are short and the post are long. The preganglionic fibers also use a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, abbreviated ACH. So when this blue fiber comes and makes contact with this red cell, it is going to release acetylcholine onto this cell and trigger it to do some action. So that's what it means by a preganglionic fibers releasing acetylcholine. These blue fibers are releasing acetylcholine, and when these red fibers get to their target organ, they're going to be releasing norepinephrine, also called noradrenaline. Epinephrine and adrenaline are the same thing. Epinephrine is an American English term, and adrenaline is a British English term. The nor part is a slightly different molecule. The norepinephrine is used in the brain, whereas regular old epinephrine is a hormone that is secreted into the blood. So these are our first two neurotransmitters that are used in the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system, acetylcholine and norepinephrine. Now, any cell that releases acetylcholine is called a cholinergic cell. We have to start learning these terms. Any cell or group of cells that releases acetylcholine is called a cholinergic cell. Any cell that releases norepinephrine is called noradrenergic, from the adrenaline reference. So a noradrenergic cell are these red cells right here that release norepinephrine on the different tissues. Now this right here shows a 1 to 20 ratio. You'll see when we go to the parasympathetic, the ratio is 1 to 4. What this means, for every one cell that is triggering an activity here, it triggers 20 postganglionic cells. So every one preganglionic triggers the action of 20 postganglionic. And this is so that we can get a quick, very quick ramp up of action to get us out of that crisis. We'll see in a minute that parasympathetic is 1 to 4. It takes us much slower to calm down after a crisis than it does for us to ramp up to be prepared for the crisis.